And we'll begin by starting with our welcome from Dr. Glass. Just wanted to check to see if he is in the meeting just yet.
I haven't seen him come in just yet, Stacy.
Thank you, Keith, for letting me know. So with some flexibility, we'll go on to our next item on the agenda. And then when Dr. Glass enters the meeting, we'll give him the opportunity to do that welcome. So Jamal, I'll turn it over to you. Item 2.
All right, good morning, everybody. I am Jamal Stiles. I am the TAC chairperson, and I teach at Washington County High School. And so I will be going through the roll call of members. So when I call your name, if you will unmute and let us know you are here. Okay, Erica Dill.
Here.
Byron Wilson. Chad Davidson.
Here.
Kason Higgins.
I'm here.
Carla Criswell.
Here.
Sharon Collins.
Here.
Jen Davis. Misty Bivens. April Jackson. Kenita Ballard.
Here.
Amber Ramirez.
Here.
Gregory Smith. Amanda Claire.
Here.
Susan Sintra.
Here.
Rosa Cubero Hurley.
Here.
Sarah Green. Donnie Wilkerson.
Here.
Jane Maudlin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sarah Beer.
Here.
Melanie Callahan.
Here.
Carla Lawson. Charlene Martin. Scott Osborne. Jennifer Stewart.
Here.
And Amy Lee Skang.
Here.
Okay, is there anybody's name I did not call? Or somebody who came in late that I may have skipped over?
April Jackson came in after you had already called her name, Jamal.
Okay, all right. Sorry, April Jackson's here. Anyone else?
Good morning. Sorry.
No, that's fine. All right, so we're going to do our approval of our minutes from the last meeting, and Stacy sent out that in the link. So if you'll just take a minute to go over those and see if you see anything that needs adjusting or anything that needs to be added, and then we'll take a motion to approve those minutes in a second.
Yeah, and in the slide deck, you can click the link to the TAC page, and that is where you can find those minutes. And then also, one more quick link in that slide deck is the virtual completion of this form, the attendance link for today's meeting.
The approval of the minutes as submitted. Second.
Okay, can you state your name so we can have that for
Donnie Wilkerson.
Okay.
Chad Davidson, second.
Thank you. Stacy, did you see that message?
No, I did not.
I may have said that. It's in the chat. Someone
Okay.
can't see the live video.
All right. We'll work on that. Thank
Okay.
you for letting me know. When I share, I
Doctor-
can't see the chat.
That is actually Byron who said he can't see the video, so he can't see the interpreters.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. No. I'll let you fix that.
I'll work on that in the background here.
Did Dr. Glass ever show up?
I am here.
Hi, Dr. Glass. We'll let you go ahead and
Thank you.
Present.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you.
It's great to see all of you. I have just a few updates to cover with you and be happy to take any questions or thoughts that you might have in response to this. Of course, what's on a lot of people's mind right now is the legislative session and what's happening there. This is technically a short legislative session, but what they have done is sort of string it out over a period of time to make it almost the same length as a regular session. Initially, these shorter sessions were envisioned as a way for the legislature to come into session and deal with any budget shocks or things that they needed to handle in off years. So before this, the legislature only met every 2 years. And so if there was something that happened in between, you'd have that long period of time before they were able to meet again. It's really changed into almost a whole session again. We had high hopes at the beginning of this session that there would be some focus on supports for the teaching profession. We have been stating with the legislature that we have a problem with teacher attrition. We now see that data that we are trending over 20% in terms of teacher turnover. That's a national effect. There was some data that was released nationally showing that same trend happening. So it's not atypical what we're experiencing in Kentucky in terms of greater teacher turnover. But if we're over 20%, the national average is 15 to 16%, then that equates to a couple of thousand more teacher openings than we've been used to seeing. We know that districts are responding to that by using younger teachers, less experienced teachers, and relying on emergency certifications as a way to solve that shortage. So those are concerning trends. So we've made an effort to make the legislature aware of those trends, and we're hopeful that they would take some actions to address it. We don't see a lot of movement on that. Representative Tipton did introduce a bill that would provide some supports, but it's even he would say it's very limited in its scope, and it's also limited in the funding that's attached to it, or a lack of funding that's attached to it. So I think in terms of support for the teaching profession or doing something about the growing shortages that we have, the message that I would just clearly relay is that help is not on the way, and that we're going to go through at least another year and perhaps into the next budget year without any significant changes. So that's disappointing, but not entirely surprising. The focus of the legislature does seem to be on cultural issues. So there's been a lot of attention paid to their transgender, LGBTQ bills. Some of those relate to education and the use of pronouns for students who are transgender, and sort of requiring teachers to misgender trans students. Of course, that counters the guidance that we've issued from KDE on this. Guidance isn't required. It's just what we recommend that you do. And the reason that we recommend that teachers use the requested pronouns is because we know that misgendering is linked to increased risk of self-harm and suicide. So there's a reason that we ask teachers to do that, but it's certainly up to districts to decide what their policy is going to be around it. So it would prohibit us from making any sort of guidance around that. And there are various versions of this, some more aggressive than others. So we'll see what form of that ultimately comes to pass, but we're probably going to see some anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ bills, some of those targeting students coming out this legislative session. Other bills of interest include there is a movement to make school board elections partisan. So you have to identify your party label to run for school board. That's been counter to what typically is the practice in the whole country of the United States, is to have school board elections be nonpartisan, with the thinking that you really want people from all perspectives weighing in and being part of school board governance, and that an interest in having quality schools is not a partisan issue. So this would inject a partisan element to local school board elections. The practical impact of it probably will be in most of rural Kentucky, you won't have any Democrats elected, and in probably Lexington and Louisville, you'll never have a Republican elected. So I'm not sure that's a good thing in either direction. But we do see that there are some constitutional questions about that, so those will have to be litigated to see what happens. On another note, there is a bill that would require a political Senate confirmation for myself and members of the Board of Education, the State Board of Education. State Board is already confirmed by the Senate, but this would create a nominating committee that has to be confirmed, that would then send nominations to the governor for State Board, and then the governor would have to, whoever he or she selects, would then have to have that person confirmed. So it's sort of a multi-step process to get on the State Board. And then a change in making the commissioner subject to Senate confirmation too. So that's in the works. One of the positive things that came out today that I think we're excited about and supportive of, one of the problems that we've had in terms of funding this year has been the growth districts that are growing in size, have been sort of stuck in amber on the 2019 attendance level all through the COVID years. And so, but if your district has experienced a large amount of growth, you had to serve those students without the accompanying funding associated with it. So we did see a bill drop either last night or this morning that would address that growth component. So we're supportive of that. We think that's a good idea to award more dollars to those districts that are growing. And one of the challenges that we've had this year with all the absences related to average daily attendance calculations, either because of COVID or because of RSV or the flu or some combination of all that, we've really seen a depressed school attendance, which will translate into a funding problem for next year. And so in the bill that's just been introduced, what we are seeing is that instead of the available money sort of going back into the general fund and vanishing from the education budget, there's an effort to hold that and put it into a transportation distribution and then distribute it back out to districts. So that may not be a perfect solution, but it's a better than it going away. And transportation has been an area that's been underfunded in Kentucky for many years. So districts are having to use their general fund dollars to subsidize the transportation fund. So in a way, this will alleviate some of that pressure and could free up some dollars. So effectively, what it will do is keep the drop in ADA that's happening from impacting districts as directly. So of course, it's going to depend on the distribution. That's going to depend on where districts fall out in the transportation calculation. So there'll be it's not exactly like the SEEK formula distribution, but it's better than it just going away. So I think those are a couple of positive things that we see moving forward. Want to update you on United We Learn. We just have gotten back some customer service information from Kentuckians and people that work in our schools. And one of the areas that was revealing on that was that our teachers don't know a lot about United We Learn. In fact, they're one of the groups that knows the least. And so this is an area of improvement for us at KDE. Excuse me. If you're not familiar, United We Learn is the state vision for the future of education. It was based on a listening tour where we took several months and hosted virtual town halls and listened to people's experiences about school and about what their aspirations were for education and for their kids. Out of that, 3 big ideas emerged. The first is that we needed to improve the experiences of our students to make them more engaging, more relevant, and give kids the opportunity ready to practice the kinds of skills that they need to be successful in today's and certainly in a future economy. So moving us past repetitive, routine, purely content-based education into the application of what's often called durable skills or soft skills or 21st century skills. It's the creativity, complex reasoning, and problem solving, collaboration, those sorts of skills, and applying and using those. So a tangible example of that coming to life in Kentucky is the state contract that we have with PBL Works to bring problem and project-based learning as a method of deeper learning more into practice in the state. So by the end of that engagement, we hope that we will have trained somewhere around a third of the teachers in the state on PBL Works. So if you're interested in that, I encourage you to seek out information on it. There are sessions happening all across the state. Some of those are in person, some of those are virtual, and lots of supports around it. So very positive development, and we're really proud of that partnership with PBL Works. Also related to it, we have, in collaboration with the co-ops, developed a network of deeper learning across the state with the co-ops and with almost all the districts in the state. So that may be happening in your district. I encourage you to learn more about that, how to get connected to it. And the big idea really is to that the change that we need is at the student level. And that's much more important and meaningful than any policy level changes that we have. That if we can change the experiences that kids are having in classroom on a regular basis, that's really the most powerful shift in education that we can bring about. So that's the first big idea, is around changing the student experience. The second big idea that was in United We Learn was around changes to our assessment and accountability systems. So there was a real sense that our systems of testing and the way that we rate schools didn't connect well to the kinds of skills that kids need to be successful. And in some ways, those assessments and accountability systems were a barrier to the kinds of changes in learning that Kentuckians wanted to see. So we do have we applied for and received a competitive state assessment grant from the U.S. Department of Education to redesign and relook at our assessment systems in Kentucky. So that work is well underway. I don't know where it's going to end up, but I would like to see it. And I think what Kentuckians told us is that we wanted a redesigned assessment system that got at some of these deeper learning concepts, and an accountability system that valued the perspectives and values in local communities more than just what's required by federal law or by state law. So oftentimes the way that we rate schools, from what's been driven from Washington or from Frankfurt, doesn't line up with what people in the community really value or want to hold their schools accountable for. So to try and make those shifts. So that's underway too. And we have a group of districts across the state that we call our local laboratories of learning that are piloting those assessment and accountability system changes as well. So that work is underway. And so that's the second big idea, shifts to assessment and accountability. The third big idea that's in United We Learn relates to collaboration and connection with our communities, and really sharing influence and power. And that there was a sense that too often decisions around the future of education are made by people in power, and the voices of sort of everyday Kentuckians and teachers and students and parents and business leaders and community people isn't always at the table. So we needed to find ways to include them and share that decision making and power. One tangible way that we're doing that at KDE, trying to model it, is through what's called our United We Learn Council. It's a broad group of Kentuckians, about 80 of them that we are pulling together on a regular basis. They're organized into three groups, one around student experience, one around assessment accountability, and one around collaboration and connection with communities. And they're really giving us advice and direction on how we move forward in bringing about those three major priorities to life. So that's a way that we're trying to model that collaboration and connection with community. And we know that there are examples of that happen in our communities across the state. I'll close with just a couple of things. One is for something for you to think about in your practice as educators. I think that this shift and the work around deeper learning, it can come about most directly if we think about the tasks that we give students. So the work that you give to your students in the course of whatever subject you're teaching or whatever you're working on. I mean, at some point you hand things over to the student and you ask them to do some work. And that task can be repetitive, routine, purely connected to the content, or it can be rooted in the content, but also require the demonstration of one of those durable skills. So a collaboration or a complex project, multi-step project that needs to be completed, or a creative solution perhaps to a problem that doesn't have a clear answer. I think that in your practice, something that I'd ask you to think about is as you examine the tasks that you assign students, are you designing intentionally in those efforts toward deeper learning experiences for students, and how might you do that? So something for you to think about. And I really believe that, we don't need any permission. We don't need a legislative action. We don't need congressional action. And we don't need a resource to change the experiences of our students. That's something that we already can do just through the design of instructional experiences that we create. Having the policies, the money, and all that certainly helps. And some of the things that are distractions from that can slow down this work. But there's really nothing that keeps us from changing the experiences of our students right now. So that's exciting. I'll close just by saying thank you. I know that this has been another difficult year. We are seeing good improvement with our students in the formative assessments that I'm getting reports on. So I know that we're climbing out of the pandemic effects, and students are recovering and making gains. And so I appreciate all of the work that you're doing on multiple levels related to that. So if you're in a tested area or not, you had kids that had lots of needs, and we're seeing progress across the board. So we knew that this was going to be a challenge. We know that it's going to be a challenge for a while going forward, and we should be clear-eyed about the magnitude of that and how much energy we're going to have to stay focused on this for some period of time forward, probably for a period of a couple of years going forward, to fully recover from this. But we are making progress, and I'm grateful for that. I know that it's been additional work for all of you, and our students have got a lot of needs right now, and I know you and your families have a lot of needs as well. So just please know that you are appreciated, valued, honored, and we're always tremendously honored to support you from the Kentucky Department of Education. All our staff, we have many teachers, educators that work on staff at KDE. We're reverent of the work that teachers do, so we're grateful and appreciative. I'll stop there and see if there's any feedback or questions that anyone has, but also don't want to take over your whole agenda. So see what y'all want to talk about.
Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Glass? Excuse me.
It's unmuted.
Okay, hey, Dr. Glass, this is Susan Sintra. I just wanted to say thank you. We've been watching this session and know that it's been difficult, and know that there's been a lot of really difficult things thrown at us right now, and you stood up to that challenge and spoke for us, and we appreciate you. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to do it, and to stand with Kentucky's teachers.
Dr. Glass, this is Jennifer Stewart, Floyd County Schools. I participate in the local learning laboratory here, and I just wanted to thank you for the work in that, and I'm excited to see our businesses, so many stakeholders getting involved in the education of our students here. It's going really well.
That's encouraging to hear, and I hear great things coming out of Floyd County and Eastern Kentucky around this work. It's really a region that's been leading in all these areas related to United We Learn for some time. So it's great that we have Eastern Kentucky involved and so many good things happening. Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Glass. We
Thank
appreciate
y'all.
you. All right. Next on our agenda is, I think it's Meredith Brewer, correct?
It is indeed. Good
Yes, all right.
morning.
Meredith,
you
you
able
can go ahead and start.
Okay, perfect. Are you able
Yep.
to hear me okay?
Yep.
Wonderful. I'm thrilled to be here with you this morning to share an update on the selection process for our 2023-2024 non-voting teacher member on the Kentucky State Board of Education. As you know, we are one of few states that have an active teacher serving on the state board, and we are so proud of that fact. We also have an active student member that also serves on the board. And as part of some revisions to statute a few years ago, there were some parameters put in place for the selection of those members and the duration of their term. So our student and teacher members do serve for just 1 year, beginning July 1st through June 30 of the following year. And they are selected from our state's congressional districts in a rotating fashion. So our teacher member for the upcoming year will come from the 1st congressional district. And the application for that teacher actually just closed yesterday. And we did receive 9 applicants for that position. So we're thrilled about that. We actually received 9 applications for our student member too. So some nice symmetry there. But the Teacher Advisory Council plays a really important role in the selection of that member. And so I am here to ask if you would be willing to serve on a special committee of the Teacher Advisory Council to review those applications and make a recommendation to the state board for the candidate to be selected to serve in this important role on the state board. So what that would entail, per the regulation that supports this work, the applications will be sent to the members of the special committees, both the Teacher Advisory Council and the Student Advisory Council, 3 days after the application window closes. So that would be March 9th. We will send to those members the redacted applications and supportive materials that those applicants submitted. You will be asked to review those applications and score them using a rubric that I will provide. And then we will meet in a virtual meeting, either the week of March 13th or the week of March 20th. So when I send out those applications, I will include a doodle poll for us to select a time to meet. And then we will meet and you will deliberate and make your recommendation for those candidates to move forward to the next sort of stage of selection. Those candidates will then be submitted to a special committee of the state board who will review the recommended candidates and then bring forward to the full board a recommended teacher and student for them to consider for approval in April. And then, as I said, those new members will officially join us July 1st. So the time commitment, as I said, we have 9 applicants. I would imagine it would take 30 to 40-ish minutes to review the applications and use the rubric. They do write a narrative statement and provide some additional support materials, including a resume. So it would you'd want to thoroughly review those, score on the rubric, and then join us for that meeting to deliberate. I will say that last year we met with the Teacher Advisory Council Special Committee, and it was probably about a 20-minute meeting. It did not take long for the candidate to be identified. However, with our Student Advisory Council, it was about an hour and a half long meeting. They were very invested in their top candidates and had a really rigorous conversation about which candidate to bring forward, which was enjoyable for everyone involved. So highlight of the year for sure. So at this time, I would like to ask for any volunteers who would like to serve on this special committee. If you happen to apply, I would ask that you not submit your name to serve on the committee. But if you did not apply and are interested, please go ahead. And I see some people are putting their names in the chat. You can also email me or Stacy. And I just would ask that the committee be identified by the end of the day today so that we can meet that deadline per the regulation that 3 days following the window, those applications will be sent to the committee. Does anyone have any questions about this process or the role? I will say Joanna Stevens is our current teacher and she represents the profession so well. We've had Allison Sloan was our first teacher and Joanna is our current teacher, and they both have done such a fantastic job advocating for teachers across the Commonwealth. But does anyone have any questions at this time?
Chad Davidson here in the main room. I'd be willing to serve on that team as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Stacy, would you mind to capture the names from the room in case, or if Keith is in there? Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
And I sent Stacy a message too, but Susan Central would.
I'm sending a message now, and Melanie Callahan will as well.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Any other questions for Meredith before she leaves? We have a lot of volunteers. That's awesome.
That's wonderful. We love it. Yeah. Teachers, I'm a former teacher, and you guys are wonderful volunteers always, and we really appreciate your willingness to serve on this committee and to help us select this important role. So have a wonderful afternoon. I'm going to stay on and listen. So if anyone has any questions that they think of, I'll be able to pop back on.
Awesome. Thank you, Meredith. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is the Visual Performing Arts Standards Update with Jessica Green from the Office of Teaching and Learning. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee. Thank you so much for having me. And I think there are some slides that'll be shared as we get started. But my name is Jessica Green. I do work for the Office of Teaching and Learning. I am an academic program consultant, and my area is visual and performing arts. So next slide, please. I am going to talk a little bit about where we are in the visual and performing arts process and what that process looks like as well. Yeah, Stacy, if you don't mind, we can go on to that next slide.
Okay, which slide do you want to be on? The KRS, the guiding question?
My screen is just showing item 4, Visual Performing Arts Standards Update. So I'm not sure if it's not progressing for us, but is for you.
All right, so I was advancing. Let me stop sharing and share again one more time. Sometimes there's a glitch.
I understand. And who knows, it might have just been my screen.
Let's see.
That's what we were seeing here as well, was the.
Okay. We're all together in this.
Okay, so how about now?
We're loading. I think that's promising. Yeah, we still have a loading screen. Oh, there's the guiding question. Is everyone seeing the guiding question? Oh, good. Okay, so as we go through this work together, just thinking about this guiding question, how might the KDE support the field in VPA standards implementation? And we will have time at the end to kind of address that question and any other questions that may come to mind through this time. Next slide, please.
Did it not advance?
It did not advance.
Question.
Now, if I do have my slide deck available, if it might be easier for me to try.
It might be. I apologize. I don't know.
That's okay.
Why it's not advancing. Let me stop sharing and let you, let's see.
Okay, that sounds good. I mean, we've got a room full of educators who understand what it means to think quick on your feet and just make it work. So I think we're in good company for how are we looking? Does it look like the statute KRS 158.6453?
Yes.
Okay, let me present and get this thing going. So KRS 158.6453 calls for the Kentucky Department of Education to create a process for reviewing standards for every content area. Now, I will say, you see the asterisks at the bottom of the screen, the visual and performing arts content is not part of that statute. However, this revision process is tried and true. It's the best way to hear teacher voice and public voice, and then just to offer that congruency between content areas. And so this is the process followed by the visual and performing arts. And usually it's one or two different content areas reviewed per year. And so there are some criteria that are in place to determine the revision process as well, focusing on critical knowledge and skills, resulting in fewer but more in-depth standards, communicating expectations to all stakeholders, being based on evidence-based research, considering international benchmarks, and then being aligned not just K through 12, but into the post-secondary field as well. And so these are all portions that the committee considers as they're making those decisions. So this is a kind of a shortened timeline. Not all of the content areas are included on this timeline. You can see social studies is not on it, English is not. They're in a different loop of this timeline. However, you can see that science just went through this process and they're in the process of implementation. And you can see visual and performing arts there began the revision process December of 2021. We are currently in it. And with the goal of implementation of the new BPA standards in the 24-25 school year. So you can see kind of how it layers and loops for each content area to be considered. Again, I work with visual and performing arts, so this is a visual representation of that timeline. We are a people who like to have a visual representation. So you can see that first mark up there that says feedback on the current cast, and it has that big thank you bubble. Thank you, especially if you were someone who gave feedback on the current cast, or if you know a teacher or a friend in the visual and performing arts who did, because that feedback turned into actionable data that is guiding the committee on these revision decisions. So thank you for taking that time back in December 2021. The next part you see with the pink arrow down to bubble number 4, that's where we currently are in the process, the writing and revising, and I'll get a little deeper into the layers that are included in that section. And then what I think is the most important section is that purple circle up at the top, section 5. That's when the revised standards will go back out for public feedback. And that's when I really need you and your colleagues to take a moment to just look at what the committee is suggesting and recommending and give that feedback, because that actionable data will come back to really refine the decisions before it goes to the Kentucky Board of Education for approval. So if you're not a visual person, this is pretty much everything I just said, but in written form. December 2021, public feedback. Then in February and March of 2022, the application process was open for advisory panel, AP, and review committee, RC members. And both of these sections include current teachers, K through 12, in the 5 different arts disciplines, collegiate from public universities or colleges, those professors in the arts, and then also community members involved in the arts. So they're comprised of folks who are using these standards currently to teach across the Commonwealth, and they represent every area of the Commonwealth as well. And then in April of 2022, we selected those members and then went right into reviewing that public feedback from December of 2021. That was step 1. Before they went into the vision, there is a portion of every CAST document called the writer's vision. And so they did a lot of research on mission and vision and created a vision for the Commonwealth. And we are currently, from October until present day, actually a meeting tomorrow, working on the architecture and layout of the document. And that's the portion that makes the document really usable and readable so that there's effective implementation of the standards. And you can see the little arrow there. This is a page that I show to the committee frequently because there are a lot of times where it's like, okay, who has the document now? It's a little like ping pong. So the AP is working on it and then they shoot it over to the RC for feedback, who shoot it back and they would consider that. So there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of intentional feedback used in this process as well. All right, that's the down and dirty quick version of what this standards revision process looks like. So then my main question for you all is how might the KDE help with the implementation of this new document when the committee is finished revising? And also, do you have any additional questions, comments, concerns, or insights that can help guide this work? So I'll stop talking and allow you all to be the experts here.
Any questions for Jessica? I will say that I was part of the science review session, and that public feedback is super important to be, to be analyzed and looked at, and it's a super important part of that process. So any questions
Absolutely.
for Jessica?
Thank you for giving that plug, because you're exactly right. This is a document that is for the public, so that feedback is guiding the work. So important.
Jessica, this is Chad Davidson, McCracken County music teacher. So I have a vested interest in the visual performing arts for sure. Are there going to be any KDE like regional offerings of professional development as we look at implementation of this additional or improved standards?
Absolutely. And as a former music teacher, thank you. I miss the classrooms. Thank you for what you do. Yes, my goal, I'm calling it my Kentucky tour. My goal is to work with the co-ops to be able to provide some implementation, professional learning across the state in the summer prior to that 24-25 school year, to really say, this is where the standards were, here they are now, here's how you adapt, here's how you make the best use of it. And then also, as Commissioner Glass kind of said, how to apply it to the United We Learn vibrant student learning experience as well. So yeah, my goal is to hit as many areas of Kentucky as I can and provide as many opportunities for that one-on-one learning and implementation. See that thumbs up, thank you.
This is Melanie Callahan. I'm a theater teacher in Laurel County, and yay! I just wanted to express my gratitude to you, first of all. Thank you for having such a vested interest and love and appreciation of the arts. But I also wanted to ask, as far as the public documentation and us being able to have an increased awareness, what are the plans or projections for a campaign to get that out and sort of promote new art standards so that not only are we engaged as educators, but also students and the public community?
Absolutely. I want to address one thing first that you said, the students, because it made me sad that in the original public feedback, we didn't have any students respond to the current CAS. Now, we know the CAS is mostly for educators to then inform students. However, I would like to put together a student focus group when this revised document is available to receive that feedback. That's first. There will be other focus groups. I've been working with all of the state level arts organizations. I was at SCTC. I know that's not a state level, but I was at SCTC this past week, working with KMEA and KYAEA for the visual arts to work with them and say, when this is ready, I need you to push this out to all of your members. It will be on the KDE website. It'll go out through a newsletter. I'm on social media because, that's a great place to connect. So I'll be tweeting about it. So we're going to make sure that it is out and available. I'll probably give like a heads up. The document's coming out soon. Get ready, because then there's a 30-day window for that feedback. And there's never a good time in an arts educator's life to say, I know I have a musical or a concert coming up, but that 30-day window is so important for that feedback. So we're going to do everything we can to ensure that, the document is coming out and here's the window so that we can get that feedback.
That's awesome, and thank you for that. I do think it's important that we hype those standards and really have everybody on board so that we, reading and math and English and all of those things get so much feedback, and there's so much awareness about them. So I just really want to encourage that sort of endorsement from the KDE and from you. So thank you.
Well, and you're welcome, but I'll add on one more thing. I have been presenting at the statewide organizations about the standards revision process. I know there's some disinformation and just a lack of understanding. As an educator, I know in the classroom, I didn't think about standards revision. So I've been really trying to be front facing to get the word out about what this process looks like and to really praise the teachers and the community members who are on that committee doing the work, because they are in the classrooms with students today. doing this work. So just making sure everyone is aware of how important the work is.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Donnie Wilkerson here. I'm so glad to have arts educators in the room, but I'm afraid that across the state that's not the case. And the question is, how might KDE support the field and implementation of the standards, all the wonderful standards in the world, notwithstanding the lack of accountability, number one, and the lack of teachers across the state. So the advocacy, and I know it's happening, but advocacy from KDE in the legislature, for what it's worth, to increase funding and hold districts accountable for having, every school should have at least one arts educator in their building. And we don't have that right now across the state, especially in the rural areas. So that advocacy at the legislative level, I think, would be the number one thing, because so many teachers and so many districts are saying, well, we're glad we have these wonderful standards. We love art, but we don't have the money, so we're not, instead of having an art teacher in that building, we're going to have another RTI person or something that's mandated by either the Fed or the state government. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that statement.
I'd like to add to his statement, it's a full-time professional educator in the visual and performing arts. I think we should have both. Yeah, that's sorry.
100.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Jessica. We appreciate you.
Thank you all so much. And if you need anything, my information is here. Feel free to email, follow on Twitter. I mostly just retweet what KDE says because I'm on board 100% with United We Learn. So so nice to meet you all and have a great day.
Thank you. You too. All right. Next on our agenda is the Educators Rising State Conference, and that will be John Pace from the Office of Educator Licensure.
Well, good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is John Pace, and I'm the Academic Program Consultant for Educators Rising and the Teaching and Learning Career Pathway. And thank you for inviting me to speak today and give a brief wrap-up of the 2023 Educators Rising Kentucky State Conference and Competitions. As many of you know, Educators Rising is the career and technical student organization that encourages and supports high school students interested in exploring and pursuing careers in the field of education. Operating under the umbrella of the Go Teach KY initiative, Educators Rising is inspiring students to consider the field of education as a viable career path. Through this effort, we are recruiting the next generation of Kentucky educators to help remedy the critical teacher shortage currently affecting every state in the country. Research shows that the most important factor contributing to student achievement is effective teachers, and it is the mission of the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness and the Division of Educator Recruitment and Development to ensure that all students across the Commonwealth have equitable access to effective educators, and it starts with early recruitment and development. Last year, at the end of our first live conference since coming out of the COVID pandemic, I was given a challenge by our Associate Commissioner, Dr. Byron Darnell, and that was to double the size of our conference. I am pleased to report that that goal was achieved. Last year, we had a student attendance of around 280, and this year we had 576 students attend the conference. Not only that, but we tripled the size of students involved in competition events, having 343 competitors. The competition events allow students to display skills learned in the classroom in areas such as lesson plan and development, public speaking, creating and curating artifacts in the classroom, and developing job interview skills through resume and cover letter development and mock interviews. Students also can explore different careers in the field of education such as teaching, administration, and support careers through research and interviewing persons currently employed in those areas. A new competition offered this year was Children's Literature K-3 in Spanish. The students compose and present a children's book in Spanish and then debrief with the judges. We had 12 entries in this category, and one of my judges remarked that several of the competitors said that for the first time, they felt their voice was heard and that they were welcomed and encouraged as potential educators. The conference also allows students to hear from leaders in the field And this year's opening keynote address was offered by Dr. Amber Sargent, Kentucky High School Teacher of the Year, who spoke to the students on the rewards of teaching despite the many challenges that teachers face today. She shared personal stories of the impact one teacher can have on a student and encouraged our aspiring educators to cherish those moments throughout their career. We also heard from Dr. Glass, whose presence at this conference is a must. He shared about the importance of the development of our education workforce, the United We Learn campaign, and the importance of creating deep and meaningful learning experiences for our students. Dr. Roger Cleveland from Eastern Kentucky University offered a presentation that focused on working effectively with diverse learners. Always highly interactive, Dr. Cleveland encouraged our students in a series of exercises that demonstrated the importance of understanding different learners, their culture, and diverse learning styles. The conference also took the opportunity to raise student voice in our organization. I always tell my teacher leaders that if you are not developing leadership within your students and chapters, you are missing a significant opportunity to allow your students to develop those skills they will need in the classroom, such as problem solving, conflict resolution, interpersonal leadership, and other durable skills. With that focus in mind, this year we introduced our inaugural state officer team, and they took the reins of this conference. Excuse me. Our state president, Ms. Audrey Gilbert, led our leadership team in much of the planning and execution of the conference. They served as masters of ceremony, were ambassadors to Educators Rising students, engaged students in numerous activities, and facilitated networking opportunities for our students. We also had a collegiate panel of current education majors engaged in a panel discussion moderated by Dr. Elizabeth Dinkins, Dean of the School of Education at Bellarmine. The topic was on the experience of majoring in education, the challenges students face, and how to succeed as an education major. The questions were composed by our state officers, and the discussion was highly interactive and engaged students who participated. Finally, excuse me, a high watermark of the day was unquestionably our closing keynote speakers. First was Ms. Hannah Evelyn, Miss Kentucky 2022, whose presentation was entitled, Rise Up, It's Time to Be an Educator. She focused her talk on 4 aspects of teaching, but I was struck by her comments on the service aspects of teaching and how educators can be of great service and servant leaders, and how this connects to the United We Learn campaign as we work to collaborate with our communities. Finally, excuse me, our Lieutenant Governor, Jacqueline Coleman, offered closing thoughts for the conference and shared her experience as a teacher and coach and offered words of encouragement to our students. She assured that the Beshear Coleman administration is an education-first administration, and her presence at this conference cemented that commitment in the minds of all who heard her speak. Lieutenant Governor Coleman and Ms. Edlin also stayed for our award ceremony and personally congratulated each of our winners. So as I was preparing this wrap up, I was trying to think how I could conclude and to share a little piece of our conference with you. The old saying goes that a picture is worth 1,000 words. I brought 22. No, if you would go ahead and share my PowerPoint.
I'll send this directly to the TAC members. I apologize, John.
That's
You all
right.
will love watching this.
It's a lot of fun. And just to conclude, I just want to say that this effort was truly a magnum opus for our little 6-person division, as Amanda had alluded to. But by no means was this our effort alone. We have the support of so many offices at KDE who sent judges and ambassadors to help execute this conference. We also had educators from around the Commonwealth who gave their time and talents to help judge our competitions, a total of under 118 persons in all. And most importantly are our teacher leaders who sponsor these chapters, doing the boots on the ground work, encouraging students to become teachers. This is truly an all hands on deck effort. In the coming months, we will honor our seniors who have committed to enroll in one of the Commonwealth's educator preparation programs with Educators Rising Senior Signing Day, and many will travel to Orlando at the end of June to compete at the national conference. Seeing all this activity, I'm reminded of what Dr. Dinkins said to our Assembly of Future Educators. Excuse me. When I look out at this gathering of students committing to education as a career, I see hope. Thank you for allowing me to talk about this important work.
Thank you so much, John. It's a great opportunity for our students. All right. Next on our agenda is the 2023 Kentucky Teacher of the Year, Mandy Perez. I'm so excited. I've looked at your slides and just excited about all the things you have to say today. So, Mandy, you can take it away. Is she here, Stacey?
Yeah, I'm just double checking. Is Mandy in the?
She's coming up. She's in the room. Yes.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
okay.
perfect.
Should I,
You want me to present your slides?
Sure. Should I turn myself on here too?
No, it'll give feedback.
Oh,
So
okay.
this camera and the microphone there will pick you up, and it'll point towards you on where it's pointing toward me now. It'll aim towards you when you start talking.
So they can see.
So as soon as you start presenting, they will be able to. Yeah. It's magic. When you start talking, the camera, it can show any direction. It'll point toward you.
Sorry.
Can you see the slides?
Yes. You can go ahead and move on to the next one. Yeah.
So it's not advancing. You can't see
It's
it
not.
advance.
No,
You're
it's
seeing
not
the
amazing.
Teacher of the Year slide.
All right. Jamal, do you have your slide deck open?
Yeah, I do.
Would you want to share?
Sure, I can.
Let's see if that works better.
All right, can you see?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, cool.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So, hello, my name is Mandy Perez, and I am the 2023 Kentucky Teacher of the Year. I wanted to start off with sharing with you what the Kentucky Teacher of the Year program actually is. It is an awards program that is a year-long platform that helps to elevate educators' voices. It is also aligned with the National Teacher of the Year program. And the primary goals of Kentucky Teacher of the Year is to celebrate excellence and to inspire and rejuvenate the education profession. Hopefully, we had some nominees from some of you that are joining on here today for the 2024 Kentucky Teacher of the Year. If you were a nominee, I hope that you took the time to fill out that rigorous application and submitted it to the department. And hopefully, you'll be hearing something soon. Okay. For this year, or a little bit about myself, I am a 6th grade English language arts teacher at Crittenden County Middle School. I was actually a former elementary teacher for the past 16 years. I just freshly started teaching middle school. I said I would never do that. Never say never. So this will be my 3rd year actually teaching middle school. I have a life, or my goal in life is to foster a love of learning and reading. My passion is in reading. So with the Kentucky Teacher of the Year, you have an ambassadorship that you actually do, where you represent Kentucky teachers and students at the state and national level. And with that ambassadorship comes a sabbatical leave. So I was offered a 6-month sabbatical leave that I could do either in the fall or in the spring. So I chose to do the spring. So from January to June, I'm actually working with the Kentucky Department of Education. During this time so far, I've had the opportunity to join in collaboration with coming in and visiting some of the associate commissioners and the chief academic officers and learning in their role in supporting staff and students in the state of Kentucky. I will admit I'm a little embarrassed to say that for 18 years I have been in the classroom behind a door, involved in my learning and teaching with my students, and not aware of what's been going on in the world of education. There is so much that the Kentucky Department of Education does here for us that we are not aware of. They work so hard every single day. And I am so grateful and I'm so thankful, and I wish that every single teacher knew just what all they did, because I'm guilty. I am one of those that said, no one cares, no one listens, no one's hearing us, no one's supporting us, and they are. They truly are. And I know I was there. I was one of them that said that no one is. And it's sad because there's a disconnect that we think no one's helping and no one's hearing, but they are. We got to find a way to make it to where all teachers are understanding that they are hearing us and they are listening and they're trying their best to help us. Okay. The next one. So that brings me to lead, teach, and advocate. So during my time here at KDE, I've had the opportunity to do a few things where I am working with, like, the Student Advisory Council. I've got to present to them. I've got to present to the Kentucky Board of Education regarding my platform. I've recently joined in collaboration with the Office of Teaching and Learning in KET in reviewing and revising a course called Everyone Belongs, Inclusivity in the Classroom. I'm currently working on a book study with the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging team, which is working on the book Conscious Classrooms, which has stolen my heart. I'm very passionate about this book, which is using diverse text for inclusion, equity, and justice in the classroom. I've contributed to the Kentucky Teacher Online publication with my first column, Be You and Be Real Because You Matter. My second column will be released this week, and it's titled, I Choose to Stay. And that brings us to lead, teach, and advocate. First of all, we're educators. We all deserve a seat at the table. Our voices are historically absent in policy decisions that impact us. And you guys, you spoke of this earlier. You know what's happening in legislation. And I'm going to go to number 2. Our voice is more important than ever. Public education and teachers are under attack at unprecedented levels. And number 3, guys, you've already started. As teachers, you stand at the intersection of policy and practice. You are in the classroom. You are there day in and day out. You know what is happening and what is going on. Your voice counts. Your voice matters, and it needs to be heard. Which leads us to the very next slide. Every time here recently that I log on into social media, I am hit immediately with negativity. Negativity about education, negativity about teaching, negativity about teachers from teachers. I've tried to voice positive, uplifting messages about the profession, about what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing here at the department. And nobody seems to want to hear that right here at this very moment, because I know they're in the trenches. If you're in the classroom, I know you're in the trenches. And just because I left because I'm on a sabbatical doesn't mean I don't get it. I'm still a teacher at heart. I get it. I mean, I wasn't there just too long ago. We have to focus on the good and the positivity, because just like from Educators Rising, like John Price just said, you had, 570-something kids wanting to join this profession. You're not going to get those kids to want to come in with the negativity that's being brought out. You've got to find that group of people that's positive and that is supporting and that is shining the bright light on the great things that are happening in education. I choose to stay. And that's difficult for a lot of people, and rightfully so. There are a lot of situations and a lot of things happening right now that people are choosing to leave, and they are justified in that. But if you choose to stay, you got to shine a light on why you choose to stay and let it be made known, because that could help someone else make that decision to stay as well. So I need you to help me help support the profession. How can we advocate for teachers to stay? So if you could take a few minutes and come up with a couple of ideas. I'm going to generate a list here. Bring up the little teacher. And I have some up here already, some ideas on we want to choose to stay. Why do we want to choose to stay? What are some things that make us want to choose to stay? First off, you just let me teach. Let teachers teach what they need to teach. We know what we're doing. We're the professionals in the classroom. Make our class sizes smaller. You know, we have cap sizes for a reason. You know, let's adhere to the cap sizes. Listen to the teacher concerns. You know, don't just send me an email and ask me, you know, what's going on and how can I help? Well, if I tell you what's going on and how can you help, listen to what I'm saying and maybe address it. Increase planning time. Because that's a big one, I know. How many of you are having your planning taking away so you can cover a class? And they entice you with, yeah, I'll pay you for it.
Oh, yeah, we're getting paid for it, yeah.
You know, our planning time is so crucial. I know it's very important to have that planning time. Improve the response to student behavior issues. That's a tough one, too. Improve salary. So, if you could, just take a few minutes. If you have something you'd like to share, you already have something in your head that you know that you think would help on retaining teachers, that would be great.
Sorry. This is
Sorry.
Donnie Wilkerson. One of the big things since the General Assembly's in session, it's a dangerous group over there. Yeah. We need to advocate for academic freedom at every juncture, and we're not the only state. Kentucky may be leading right now, especially with House Bill 470 and what they're going to do to transgender kids. I encourage each and every teacher to notify your legislator about that bill. It is a tragedy. It's going to be posted, and it passed the House 75-22. So advocacy at the General Assembly, go there. I went this morning and spoke before the House Education Committee. We've all got to do that. We've got to stand up. We can't leave it to KEA. They're doing a great job, don't get me wrong, but their voice is not heard. They're considered the enemy. But when an individual teacher from that person's district sits in front of them, they listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you've got some good ones, Susan Sintra. Clearly, improving salaries is a huge one, and increasing planning time. Protecting our planning time, I think, needs to be how we discuss that as well. Improving salaries is clearly something that's not going to happen with this group of legislators in there. Our funding models have proven over and over that it's not equitable across varying sizes of districts, how we fund our schools, but improving our salaries is not something that's probably going to happen anytime soon. However, we can protect our planning period, our planning time. There's been bills that have been presented in the last session to do that, and if we can get more support to keep that moving, that would be a huge priority. And of course, advocating constantly. But teachers are so drowning with stress and all the stuff. They don't even understand all that's happening every single day. So figuring out ways for us to be more intentional about what is happening. You know, like you said, you're behind the closed door, and we all are. So, all right.
I think of Chad Davidson, a mentoring program for young, new teachers or new to the profession teachers. I know when we at K-TIP, I had a great mentor teacher, so that, and Kara and all that old stuff, so that's how old I am. But with now, if you've got a new teacher that comes in the building, they're pretty well flopping like a fish out of water sometimes, unless their team really grasps a hold of them. So I think a strong mentoring program across our state would be a wonderful opportunity for our teachers to retain new teachers. Talked to a teacher in Bowling Green the other day. This is her second year teaching, and this will be her last. She said she can't handle the discipline issues. So if we had a mentoring teacher that would go in and say, here's how I can help you with these discipline problems, I think that might keep that teacher in a little bit longer. So that's a option.
Melanie Callahan, 2020 Teacher of the Year, so welcome to the sisterhood. I think also I love what you're doing about when you said you wanted to shine a light on why we do choose to stay. I think that is a really beautiful way to put that, because it does sometimes seem like teaching is a dark place. And so by shining a light on it, I feel like that we are showing that hope that John spoke about earlier. And I think we can do that also through, having a presence, I think would improve the overall visibility of teaching as a profession. I think that sometimes, when our kids are seniors or juniors and they want to be teachers, I hate to say it, but sometimes that's frowned upon among their peers or even among adults who are in leadership roles for them. And so if the teaching profession could, look different and have that light shone it the way that, a lawyer or physician maybe has that light, just improving, I guess, and maybe increasing the awareness of what we're doing as a whole, and that we do have a voice, and that there is hope and there is a future in education. And, salary would make a big difference. Presence would make a big difference, power. And sometimes we don't see that we have those things. But I do love the idea of just shining a light on it and showing the beauty of what we do. Thank you.
Yes.
Kanita Ballard and JCPS. I wanted to second my fellow TAC brother who spoke to the mentorship program, but I would like to also extend upon that of we need to not just support new teachers, but we need to be able to compensate and elevate our teacher leaders, because oftentimes, and right now, we have the world of not education looking more attractive than the world of education, because there is compensation for labor. There is compensation for emotional labor. There's compensation for the investment that we are putting in, or that people are putting into their jobs. And we should be able to have some way to support developing teacher leaders in the way of a hybrid program where teachers are able to stay in the classroom, but also fill capacities within their schools of serving as some type of coach, some type of partner, et cetera, et cetera. But I cannot stress enough, not just the support of a teacher leadership and mentorship program, but the compensation of that as well. Because I think also what makes, what is a barrier for us in education is that we are not treated as whole people. So even when someone adopts or fosters or get pregnant, we don't have access to maternity leave. We have to make sacrifices to be able to be whole, complete people. And that's not necessarily true outside of the world of education. But also I wanted to add that there be explicit and targeted information about how teachers of color and teachers who belong to marginalized populations are also supported. Because when we look at something like improve the response to student behavior issues, and we see that the response is something where it is punitive, and we know that the data is when a system is set up that is addressing student behavior that is punitive and is disproportionately affecting students of color, what message is that sending to current teachers of color, potential teachers of color? And it's the same thing with our LGBT teachers as well. The messages that we are creating around students, we are also sending to our faculty and our staff as well. So we have to be able to also elevate not just the advocacy for our students of color and our queer students, but also for our teachers as well. Because oftentimes a lot of us are in a spot where we don't know who is supporting us. We don't know who has our back, what our protections are, what our safeties are.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Carla Criswell. I'm from Christian County Public Schools. There's a lot of support and recruiting teachers into education, but there's not a lot of support in retaining. With the different options of people can enter education with option, was it 7, 9, and things like that. A lot of districts are offering money to pay for people to go back to school, but what about the educators that already have their masters? Like, what incentives can be offered to them to advance in their education so they can make more money? Because we know that most districts pay based on your degrees and how many hours you have beyond the bachelor's and the master's and the rank 1. So I think that's one thing that can help in retaining teachers, is offering incentives for them to continue on, because now most of the incentives is in the recruiting stage, getting people to come into education, but not so much in keeping them in education.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Anybody else have?
Okay, thank you guys. A lot of good suggestions there. I can take back. The next slide just has some tools for advocacy. What are some different things that you can do to help use your voice? There are some policy groups, and you guys already are doing this by serving on the Teacher Advisory Committee. Joining statewide task forces, fellowships, you can create a letter. I'm not going to read this whole document to you. Stacy can send it to you, I think, if you would like a copy of this. When I went to the national conference in California for being a state teacher, they actually presented us. One of the presenters had a copy of this, and I thought, oh, I love that so much. That she had given out this copy for me. So I asked, if I could have that. And a couple of us had a lot of copies. So I love it just because there was a lot of different ways to use your voice for advocacy. So use social media, again, just in a positive way. Use that social media as a positive way to spin off education and how to promote being a teacher, the best job, the most noble job in the world. And then for the next slide, I just want to let all of you know that I know you struggle. This is the month of March. I know you're doing all that you can do. You're trying to get to the finish line. What you do matters. I want you to know your impact on other people is bigger than you think. Someone still giggles when they think of the funny thing that you said. Someone still smiles when they think of the compliment you gave them. Someone silently admires you. The advice you give has made a difference for people. The support and love you've offered others has made someone stay. Your input and opinions have made someone think twice. Your existence makes a positive difference. Thank you for what you do. You guys are awesome. Choose to stay, please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mandy. I love your passion. I'm excited to see all the great things you're going to do this year.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is Dr. Darnell with the legislative update.
All right. Well, good morning, afternoon, depending on which area of the state you're inhabiting now. I would just want to reiterate what Ms. Perez was saying and just say that I have just immense gratitude for each of you and the powerful impact that you are making every day. And I hope, that is being affirmed and you are being reminded of that in your local context. But I just want to say that to you all today and just thank you for being a part of, I know we're disseminating more, talking to, but it is the best part when you all have the opportunity to have conversation. You know, the conversation is the learning. I also want to say, Mr. Wilson, it's an honor to meet another Byron, because it rarely happens. And I've lived half of my life as Brian because I just gave up. So it's good to meet another Byron on occasion. It's a very rare occasion. So I also, another lesson learned is make sure
Nice to meet you as well.
make sure you are early on the agenda. So now that you get to me and you've heard all of this, I don't want to just repeat a lot of what has already been presented. Dr. Glass sort of stole my thunder a little bit, focusing on the legislative session, and I wish it was a cause for celebration. But I believe we can all sort of see things that are transpiring, and likely we all would like to see more as a beneficiary to the important work that's taking place. I appreciated Ms. Claire for talking about just the growth of the Ed Rising, and John sort of giving you a recap of last Thursday. I work with just incredible people, and have the honor of working alongside, obviously our host today with Stacy and Keith, but there are several other individuals that are a very small staff but make a lot happen. So that would not be possible without them. But I do have to say that, given that it is March, in this period of the year, if you've ever seen The Pit, the graphic that shows the high at the beginning, and then you get to February and March, and then, we'll start getting that upturn, but it's an uphill, it's uphill at this point. It's just the natural progression of the school year, and just being tired, and sort of looking to spring to give us that rebound effect, if you will. But last Thursday was incredible. With over 500 students represented from across the state, it was like just a shot of hope, a shot of energy. And if anything, we have students that have an interest in this profession. And certainly everyone has the right to choose their path and what is going to bring them happiness, but we will have individuals that were in that room or in those competition rooms that will join the profession. And so the most hopeless thing I get constantly is, the broad question of what are we going to do to solve this problem? How are we going to prop up our profession? And it's very demoralizing because, I think we all understand that one thing will never do this. A person, a program, it will never do the amount of progress that is necessary to support the students in our schools with the talented educators like yourselves. And so, in listening to Ms. Perez and her extremely positive message of why we choose to stay and what it is that compels us to promote this profession as the noble presence that it is within just our world at large. So I've said a lot, we're hardwired for negativity. And it's so easy to latch on to the negativity that it often overshadows all the amazing moments that happen in schools, classrooms, every single day. And it is just as small as a smile in the hallway, to a student, to a conversation, a sidebar, helping them navigate something that they're going through, to discovering a moment in learning that clicks for them. And there are millions of these moments that are just never captured. And unfortunately, the headlines that rule our day, sadly, mostly focus on the problems. And it's not that the problems aren't real, and that they don't exist and that we shouldn't acknowledge them. We have a right, you have a right to advocate for the conditions that are prime for you being successful so your students are successful. But I just know that all of us have a student or students in our hearts every day that we're thinking about, that we go to. And it's just that compassion and that care that brings such a level of greatness, I think, to what being an educator means. So we're trying in small increments. I think the Ed Rising approach is an important one. As John mentioned, he did meet my challenge, and I give a big pat on the back to him and the team for that. And we're outgrowing space, and that was the goal of the conversation at the end of last year's competition. So we need a bigger venue. And I just feel a great sense of optimism about that. And so when people ask, what are you doing? How are you trying to address this issue? It is just incrementally. Legislatively, it just really stands to be seen. The one bill I'll mention is what they call the omnibus bill. It had a lot of education related items in it, and that's House Bill 319, Representative Tipton's bill. It was heard this morning again in committee. It has a substitute added to it, so they're getting their hands in it. And we'll just have to see. There were items in there that have price tags with them. Things come with a cost, and that has been mentioned today too. Just being compensated, being honored for the work that you're doing, i.e., the mentoring comment is spot on. We need to provide teacher leadership opportunities that come commensurate with the additional pay and the time that it takes to do that well. But again, that is going to take appropriations that come from the General Assembly. So again, it's a hurry up and wait. We're pretty used to this, unfortunately, and a lot of times it's with sort of clenched fists, as we're sort of holding out. But next Friday represents sort of the end and the beginning, the end of the committees and the floor action, and then it goes into the veto period. And so by next Friday, we will certainly have a better view, if you will, of where the bills stand and their success or lack thereof. And then, of course, any substitutes that have sort of rearranged the bill from its original draft. So, with all that being said, I know it is tough. That goes without saying. But we do at the department care deeply for this state, you all, and our students. And it's difficult because you feel you're at such an arm's reach in a lot of ways. And, Kentucky has a lot of ground to cover, and you can only be in so many places at one time. But I want to thank Ms. Perez for her comments, because there are some wonderful people at the department, and I'm extremely honored to work alongside them. Their heart is in the right place, and while it's always a difficult position to be in at times as you navigate policy in what it needs to be in practice. But just I assure you that there are some extremely competent people at the department that are advocating for you in every possible way. So just know that always available. And if I cannot provide you with the information you need, I will find the individual that can provide information that you need. We are here. We want to be of service to you. And so please, it is never an inconvenience to reach out and let us know what it is that we can do to help you. And just want to raise you all up on this Tuesday here, and just give you all just that oomph perhaps to get to the spring break and get a little bit of time to recharge yourselves. But just a world of gratitude to each and every one of you, and the opportunity to just be here and listen to your conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Darnell. We appreciate you. All right. So that was the last thing on our agenda, shockingly enough. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we wrap up? Okay, so just a
I
couple
just
of
wanted
things.
to,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
No,
I
you're
just wanted to interject and make sure that I had all of the volunteers who were willing to serve on the committee that Dr. Brewer talked about. I had, and you just let me know if I've left off someone, just let me know before the close of this meeting, please. But I have Amanda Claire, Sharon Collins, Carla Criswell, Amber Ramirez, Sarah Beard, Chad Davidson, Melanie Callahan, Susan Sintra, and Carla Lawson. Just wanted to check and make sure that that was accurate, because I'll be submitting that to her. She needed it today.
Kenita Ballard was on that list as well.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all.
All right. So as we wrap up, just make sure that you did the sign-in sheet, sign-in Google form, and that was at the beginning of the slideshow. One of the things that we ask you to do is to fill out the feedback form. We do look at these forms to look at potential topics for our next meeting. So we ask that you fill that out and we look at it and then, decide what we will talk about at these meetings. These are super important for you to fill out. These are our meeting dates for 2023, 2024. So go ahead and put those on your calendar. And then our next meeting date will be June the 6th. And hopefully by that time, we will all be out of school. So make sure that you put that on your calendar as well, June the 6th, 2023. All right, before we adjourn, does anybody have any comments or concerns? All right, so if I can get a motion to adjourn and a second, please.
We adjourn, Chad Davidson.
Susan Sintra will second that.
Thanks so much, everybody. We appreciate you and everything that you do. If you ever have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to myself or Stacy. We love hearing your feedback. We love hearing from you, and we appreciate you. And everybody have a great week, and we'll see you in June.